Hey there. We're back in the car. So there's a couple different topics I want to talk about, and I am not entirely sure which one I'm gonna do, to be honest with you. It's been a bit of a, I wouldn't say a weird day. I don't know. It was just like a quiet day. There wasn't, I feel like I didn't have so many synchronicities happening, or rather, today was a day with my daughter, so I feel like I was a little, yeah, I was focused not on being in tune with myself, if that makes sense. Or I don't know, I feel like when I'm with her sometimes, which is a good thing, I feel like I get present, and I don't really have the time to think about certain things, like or just receive downloads, I guess. And also, typically I listen to a bunch of different stuff throughout the day, like channeled messages, or I was trying to listen to an Alan Watts audiobook, but it wasn't happening. It wasn't happening. So yeah, I don't know, it was like, it felt a little quiet. And I guess especially for the last few days, I've been getting so much insight. So when I have days like this, when it's more quiet, I'm just like, what's happening? I mean, yeah, it's not a bad thing. But yeah, I don't know. I felt really called to talk about something. I feel angsty. And I'm starting to really pay attention to when I feel this way, or just feelings in my body in general. So it's like, if I feel more tired and stuff, then I kind of leave it alone, or I try to slow it down. But yeah, when I feel like this, I always feel like I need to do something, and right now I feel like I'm supposed to talk. I guess something on my mind currently, just because I had a situation with some friends, and it kind of ties into stuff with my family and my mom, is kind of about understanding other people's perspectives and letting go of the need to be right rather than to be heard. Yeah, I don't want to get into what happened with my friends, because it doesn't involve me, and it's not my place to put that on the internet. But I will talk about with my parents. So if you've been following me lately, it's been quite a struggle. It's been a push and pull with boundaries with my parents. As I'm learning more about how I've been affected by them, through generational trauma, and just the way that they think about things, it's been tough, because I know that the way that they think stems from the way they were raised, the way that they grew up, and it's just a pattern of thinking a pattern of thinking that is hard for them to break because they're older. But at the same time, I'm navigating how to, be true to myself and still honor myself and honor what I need in life, but still be able to be there for them. And the other day, I went to see my mom, and she asked me about my business, and I didn't like how she asked, but she was just like, "Oh, you making money yet?" And then she was like, "Oh, be careful, with these loans and stuff, business is by luck." And I had to stop her, and I said, "Hey, I don't want to hear it." That's what I said at first, but then before I left, I tried to just try to come from a point of understanding where I was like, hey, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to you when I ask you not to talk, or when I say I don't want to hear things that you say, but it's just, that's not a line of thinking I want to get into. That's not a line of thinking that successful people have, and that's why I'm asking you not to say that. And also, you've never run a business, you've never tried to open a business, so I don't really want your advice on this. And typically I get a lot of push and pull from my mom, but she was actually receptive, or at least she didn't cut me off or make a face or anything when I said that. She was kind of just like, oh, okay. And I don't know if it landed, but I guess why I'm bringing this up is because I had a conversation with the tenant that lives in the basement, because she's actually been trying to talk to my mom about giving me space. Because, yeah, my mom is one of those people that holds on too tightly. She tries to control everything in the situation. And I know from myself, because I did this before as well, where when you hold on too tightly to control, whether that's with people, with your viewpoint, with being right, all of that stuff, it doesn't serve you, or it kind of just serves the opposite effect than that you actually want, which typically is actually to be heard and for your needs to be addressed. But then when you make it about you being right, it triggers the other person's defense mechanisms and all of that. So that tenant I was talking to, because she was saying that she had tried to talk to my mom about kind of letting go, and she was like, yeah, your mom's never going to change. She's never going to change. She's never going to see your point of view. Try to be there for her, but like, don't expect that from her. And, you know, if it was like a month or two ago, I would have agreed with her. And I don't think this is just me talking from a place of optimism, but I think that with people, it's just about finding different avenues to getting them to that level of understanding, or that level of common ground. And, you know, with my parents, I'm seeing a little bit of change in both of them. I'm seeing them be a little bit more receptive to, I guess, the things that I had told them that I was feeling. And I think in their small ways, they're trying. And you can never expect overnight change. Like, you can never expect that you are going to say something to someone and then they are going to change like that. And yeah, it happens for some people, extreme cases, I guess, but for most people, when you think one certain way, or when you were raised with certain defense mechanisms, it takes time to change, but it takes consistency, and it takes baby steps, making small changes at a time, incremental changes. And I think the issue with lots of people is they dismiss the fact that they can change, so then they just don't try to. And yeah, it's about making it important enough to do it. And I think a lot of us kind of just wish that the people around us would change. And while that's a valid thing to wish, or a valid way to see things, at the same time, there is a level of you having to do that. And for myself, I had to kind of let go of thinking that my parents were gonna change for me, you know? And I think it's a sad thing, it sounds like a really sad conclusion to get to, because I think every kid wants to feel like their parents would go to the ends of the earth for them. But at the same time, everyone is living in their own reality. Everyone's in their own world. So, you know, to expect somebody to magically break all of the things that have held them up as people up until now is a lot to expect from anybody, you know? And it's like, no matter what role you have in life to another person, it's like, yeah, you can't expect anybody to do things for you, because at the end of the day, everyone has to do things for themselves. And I think that's the issue with a lot of people, is the same way that they wish other people would change for them, they think this way because they aren't trying to change for themselves, you know? And, you know, we're all self-righteous in that regard, you know, that where we feel like we're right, or the way that we think our perspective is right. But at the same time, in a lot of contexts, there is no definitive right or wrong. You could be partially right. You could be right to certain people and wrong to other people. And it's about trying to hear other perspectives and coming from the understanding that everyone grew up and was raised differently. You know, everyone has different perspectives. And yeah, there's some things in life that it's like, okay, yeah, that's clearly fucking wrong, or like that's like, this is a collective moral thing that everyone believes is wrong. But I mean, with a lot of situations, and I'm starting to think about when friendships end, or like, yeah, even in families, when certain relationships end like that over misunderstanding, like long-standing relationships, it's a lot of the times it's just people not seeing eye to eye, or whether it's both sides or one side. It's like, yeah, just people want to be heard, and people don't want to feel like they're wrong. But in doing, or like in acting in such a way where you get defensive, and you know, you're trying to prove that you're not wrong, you end up invalidating the other person. And instead of listening to them, you start to look for flaws in their argument. I used to do this a lot with my mom. It's like, okay, but you didn't do this and this and this. And it's like, we need to come from a perspective where it's like, hey, the way you did this made me feel a certain way, rather than to be like, you did this, because it's implying intent. And at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, we can energetically feel when somebody's doing something, but you can't dictate whether someone's doing or someone's acting a certain way out of consciousness or subconsciousness. Because yeah, we all have egos. We all have, and our egos are there to protect us. They tell us certain things so that we're protected, because again, we grow up different. We all grow up with different defense mechanisms. Oh, that's fine. Okay, sorry, a message came up in my car. It's gonna shut off in a little bit, but I guess without giving the context of the situation with my friends, the example I'll give is, I have one friend who grew up with a bunch of sisters, so she grew up having to defend herself a lot. And when it comes to arguments, that's initially what she does, is she will tell her side or defend her side, and not really go straight for the apology. But yeah, it's her defense mechanism. And then I have another friend who, she grew up as the backbone of the family, as the person who is relied on. So she comes from a place where she wants people to see her and her efforts And then when she feels unseen, it hurts her. So it's like we have these two people who are clashing and trying to get the other person to understand how hurt they are, but it's like they're not able to see eye to eye because they're thinking so much about how hurt they are and not really taking in the reasons for themselves on why they're hurt. And then making it the other person's problem rather than to be like, maybe the way that I said this came off a certain way because of how they feel inside. And yeah, I feel like a lot of people don't do that, you know? A lot of people don't try to really see from the other person's perspective and just see how, okay, even though I didn't intend this is how it came off, and I'm sorry that my choice of words came across this way, but at the end of the day, that's not what I meant. And it's like, it could be so much more simple. But yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's tough with my mom specifically. It's so tough because, you know, there's a language barrier. She's been in Canada for over 30 years, probably like 35 years or something like that. But at the end of the day, this isn't her first language, and there's certain nuances in communication that she doesn't understand. So it's like when I'm explaining things to her, it's almost like she already comes off feeling a level of inferiority. She feels inferior. And, you know, I don't mean to make her feel that way. I don't mean to make her feel dumb or whatever, or like she can't understand, but it's just like, that's just the nature of how things are, because she didn't teach me her language. So I'm communicating to her the only way I know how to communicate. And it's like, at the end of the day, I can't stop that feeling from her, you know? It's her who has to be aware of that feeling and aware of why she takes things a certain way and why she responds a certain way before we can ever get anywhere. And, you know, yeah, in terms with my parents, I've kind of settled on, you know, I'm just not going to be around as much if you guys don't change your line of thinking. And that's not like a threat or anything. It's just what I need to do for myself. And if we can improve things little by little, then I'll increase it. And it's just like, there's no hard stops. And I think that's where I've really changed and really grown, because I feel like, especially like a couple months ago, I remember I made a video about cutting them off, and then I made another video about how I shouldn't say stuff like that, or it's just like, it's just very absolute, you know? It's a very concrete statement, but emotions are fleeting, man. Things change all the time. People go through things, and people surprise people all the time. And I've always, not always, but I have this, I have this belief that anybody can change. Anybody can change at any time. You know, people go through really traumatic things and then it changes them for the better. And some people go through things and then they, you know, they don't change. It's a toss-up. It's always a toss-up. You never know. But it's like, when you don't give people the chance to grow, it's typically because you don't feel like you can grow. And it's not fair to you, and it's not fair to the people around you, you know? yeah, this world would be a much better place if people could communicate better, but it is what it is sometimes, you know. Anyways, I hope this was insightful. Definitely a ramble. Um, yeah, I think I might stop this and then talk about another thing that I want to talk about. So, if you like this, if it resonated with you, I hope to see you next time. Bye.